further circled out throughout our country and across our borders into Namibia. And that we as a citizenry must express our power, our sense of power as Democrats who have elected a government and who have the right to demand from that government to give expression of our sense of trust in them and to be accountable when they fail to give expression to that sense of trust and to live up to the provisions of our Constitution. So a broad-based civil society mobilization under the theme, Ramaphosa must go. This is the duty, the task that you have given us. I want to ask all of us who are present in this Twitter space to respect the limitations of the Twitter space, to respect also that it would not be the wisest thing for us to go into a detailed discussion here about how one organizes mass mobilization that touches throughout the length and breadth of our society and all the various civil society organizations, churches, NGOs, NPOs, and the full expression of our nation and our nation's outrage about how President Ramaphosa conducted himself. What we do need to do, however, is to say to each other tonight that whatever we plan, whatever organization happens, will abide to the same principles that we want to keep President Ramaphosa and his government accountable to. So there must be full accountability in terms of how we organize. There has to be transparency. And the way in which we organize and the manner in which we move forward with this broad people's movement must be an expression of citizen power. We want to confirm that everything we will do will be legal, will be within the parameters of the law, will be an expression of the rights and freedoms as contained in our Constitution. We fought for this Constitution. Many of us have seen some of our friends and fellow comrades dying for this Constitution and for the rights that we now have, which also express freedom of speech. The last thing I want to say before I'm going to hand over to my co-moderator, Tsepo Khadima, and ask him to give further input. Perhaps there's certain areas that I may not totally have touched on. But the last thing I want to say is that we are going to make sure that this campaign will be true and honest, that this campaign will reflect the outrage of our people, but at the same time will also reflect the dignity of our people. And we are not going to be partisan. We are not going to be party political. This is not going to be an ANC campaign. It's not going to be an economic freedom fighters campaign. It's not going to be any political party's campaign. It is going to be political, but it is going to be broad-based. It is going to be a broad civil society, community-driven, people's-driven campaign. Because it is the people who have been betrayed by Cyril Ramaphosa. It's the people who have been betrayed by Cyril Ramaphosa, who betrayed and contravened the oath of office that he laid down. And before I hand over to my co-presenter, to my co-moderator, Tsepo Gadima, I want to play a sound clip to you. A sound clip of President Cyril Ramaphosa laying down his oath of office. Listen to it and ask you, is this person who you can hear here making that oath with his hand solemnly on the Bible, is he true to his oath of office? Is he true to us?
Assembled here, in the presence of everyone assembled here, and in full realization of the high calling, I assume as President of the Republic of South Africa, I, Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa. Swear that I will be faithful to the Republic of South Africa. And will obey. And will obey. Observe. Uphold. And maintain the Constitution. And all law of the Republic. And I solemnly. And sincerely. Promise. That I will always. Promote. All that will advance the Republic. And oppose. All that may harm it. Protect and promote. The rights of all South Africans. Discharge my duties. With all my strength. And talents. To the best of my knowledge. And ability. And true to the dictates. Of my conscience. Do justice to all. And devote myself. To the well-being. Of the Republic. And all of its people. The President-elect, will you please raise up your right hand and say, so help me God. Everyone.
Well, there you have it. I devote myself to be true to the Republic and all its people. So help me God. So help God us with this man and his forked tongue. I now want to hand over to my co-moderator, Tsepo Gadima, to add to the report that I've already presented. And I see that Advocate Dali Mpofu has joined us. Advocate Mpofu has been very involved in the engagements that we've had, and we have been able to benefit greatly from his legal knowledge, but also the manner in which he integrates that legal knowledge with a civil conscience and strong political commitment. Before I hand over to Advocate Mpofu, let me first ask my co-moderator, Tsepo Gadima, to come in. I hope that the sound was adequate. Tsepo, perhaps you should just indicate to me whether the sound also of the recording that I played was audible as you start speaking. I'm handing the mic over to you, Tsepo.
Thank you very much, Mbangazita, and good evening to all the patriots who have taken the available time to participate in this Twitter space. Mbangazita, you have covered all the elements in terms of the report back that was promised. Though I think that it will be befitting that as Mpofu SC will be speaking next, then if there's anything that has been left out, he can add. There's only one point I wanted to perhaps also add to the taking of the oath of office during the last inauguration of the man in question, the man of the hour, none other than Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa. And that is recently there's a video that surfaced of him being at the Pala at the Angole auction, where he effectively made a total mockery of that oath of office we've just had him being sworn to by the Chief Justice Mogoeng. And I don't know if you've got that clip as well, that maybe we could play it. So to demonstrate the level of disdain that this man has to the oath of office that he has taken, that he has, it is very evident. In fact, when you listen to that video, whether or not he made those comments in jest or otherwise, the fact is that his actions pursuant to that video that has surfaced from that time, it shows absolutely that he, in fact, has got total disdain for the oath of office and the sacred office that he occupies, and that he has made a mockery of the whole thing. And I think it might be beneficial for the participants here to be able to listen to those comments that he made at one of the auctions of the Angole cattle at his Pala farm, just to really, I think, if anything, to emphasize and demonstrate the point. And if it's possible to play it, it will be great, Mbangazita. But I think now, for the sake of time also, let's allow Mpofu SC to come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsepo. Can you please, while Advocate Mpofu speaks, look out for Paul Ngobeni? I'm trying to find him amongst all the people who have entered the space. I'm not yet able to do so, because obviously once we're outside this report back part of our Twitter space conversation, we will have to proceed with Advocate Ngobeni, and after that, then also with Kim Heller. Advocate,
perhaps
please proceed.
I've located him. I have.
Okay, I see him now. I will ask him to enter. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Advocate Mpofu, you can proceed.
Okay, good evening, Comrade Carl and Comrade Tsepo and everyone else who is here, your esteemed speakers. Yes, I think you've covered most of what happened. Maybe you'll forgive me if I repeat some of it, but I'll try to be quite brief here. So as Carl explained, we basically had this facilitations group here, or facilitations forum. We don't want to call it a committee because it is not. It's just a facilitation thing. Yeah. But the idea, you'll remember that it was mentioned at the space that there are certain things that must be done, in a physical meeting, so to speak. So I'd like us to think of this as a two-dimensional project, so to speak. One, there's the virtual dimension, which is here in the space, but there obviously has to be a physical dimension, and the two must work together in a way. I won't go through what we call the value proposition, which we defined, that Comrade Carl has already spoken about, except just to say that Comrade Carl, after when I was doing a note of our meeting, I realized I've reordered the three values into accountability, citizenship, and transparency. because they come up with an acronym ACT, ACT, which is what
Great stuff. Great stuff. I like it a lot. Thanks.
Which is what it's really all about. Then the other issue that I really wanted to touch on was just to identify some of the sectors that were identified. We created the following list of sectors, non-exhaustive, so people can add. It's endless because it should cover all citizens, as already explained. But some of the sectors, just to give an idea, were churches and religious bodies, that's 1. 2, students. 3, business. 4, political organizations. 5, women organizations. 6, labor organizations. 7, traditional leaders. 8 NGOs and CBOs. 9, professionals. 10, academics. 11, sports and culture. 12, legal bodies. So that's just a dozen sectors that we identified. But as I say, that list has no end. So any other sectors, civil society means literally everybody. Okay, and then we also said that the main role of the space and the other spaces and social media platforms and even mainstream media platforms that we might be utilizing would be mobilization, fundraising, receiving this kind of report back as we're doing now, giving feedback and interfacing with what we call the physical dimension of the campaign, or as Comrade Carl put it, to give expression to the emotions. Then the next point was that there would be a fundraising committee, which will hopefully be housed in a trust in the medium to long term, but in the short term, we could use an attorney's trust account, and that it would be chaired by the bishop who was at the meeting, Bishop Sioka, and when he puts it together, he must include an accountant or an attorney and an attorney. So if there are any volunteers, they can be part of that effort. And then I think, and then hopefully once they have assembled themselves, at the next space they might give us an account number where we can make donations. And we recommended that this should be a campaign that is funded from the ground and not, corporate funding, which might make it susceptible to all sorts of influence and capture and so on. So that's a challenge to all of us. The more we can self-fund this as people on the ground with little, minimal donations or high donations for those who can make it, the better. And the last point was that each sector, we allocated people to approach each of the sectors that I've mentioned, and that each sector must then propose 2 persons, hopefully a man and a woman, to represent it, and then have a more representative meeting of the sectors. And then that forum will then decide the way forward, and the facilitations thing will dissolve away. They'll decide how to take the matter forward. Thank you. Those are just the additions I wanted to make.
Thank you, Advocate Mpofu. I'm going to give 1 or 2 people who've requested to speak a chance to respond. But in asking you to respond, I'm asking you not to try and do planning and organization here, because this is not what this space is about, and the space doesn't lend itself to that kind of process. But we promise that we will continue to use this space as a very important report back and feedback platform. But please, let's not try and organize ourselves on this space in terms of the nitty-gritties, the nuts and bolts of what has to be done, because that is simply just not practical. Advocate Mpofu, can you just mute your mic? There's background noises coming in.
Sure.
Thank you. I see that Nkulisi Ngobese has requested to speak. Nkulisi, please, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Comrade Carr, and good evening to everyone. I just want to make a suggestion or perhaps a proposal that as soon as the account is ready, could we then start depositing so that we can make sure that this kind of initiative, takes off because it is long overdue. I think the constitution of this country has been breached many times, and it's quite clear to each and everyone in South Africa. So that is just my proposal, if not, if I can better say, suggestion that as soon as the account is ready, from my side, I'm ready to make sure that there's a debit order, that at least $100, that comes off my account. If people from AfriForum could achieve something which is quite effective for white people, I don't see what the challenge would be with us. I think now is the time that we rise and we make a stand as a collective. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that is very helpful, and it links in with what Advocate Mpofu said, that we want this to be a broad-based, people's-funded campaign. So we want seed money coming from throughout the country, from individual people contributing. And we would like to see it grow like that, because the character of the campaign is broad-based citizen power. And we want to see the funding in the same way. And as Advocate Mpofu said, we will go at great lengths to ensure that there is accountability, that there's proper bookkeeping, and that any funding is properly taken care of in a proper trust account. So I just wanted to add that. There's one more person who requested to speak. I'm wanting to express my gratitude that those of you who are participating in this space tonight are very disciplined. You're not requesting to speak on this because you understand this is not the place where we are going to do the planning. So, Village Attorney, please, the mic is yours. It seems that Village Attorney is not taking the opportunity to use the mic. I now want to take the opportunity. Tsepo, you are very fortunate. You asked me something which you should have requested of me before the event, but fortunately I have it here on my computer, and that is the short clip of what President Ramaphosa said at that notorious auction of his, which happened this last weekend. Comrade Ali, yes?
Yes, no, thank you. I might not be here for the full duration. Before you play the clip, I just wanted you to acknowledge this is a very important moment of receiving the first 100 rand that has just been pledged for the campaign. I think some of us must now think of putting on top of that 100 rand. It means at least we can have water at when we go to march.
Nkulisi, we acknowledge you for that pledge, and we hope that there will be many more 100 rands coming so that we can do the job that you, as the people on this Twitter space and elsewhere, has given us. Now, let me play the clip because it even emphasizes more why we should do what we are doing. Here it comes.
Not the president of South Africa. The other one is just a nice one to have. The real good one is the president of the Ankole Society.
I'm going to play it again. I think I cut it. You need to hear it properly.
Ankole Society, not the President of South Africa. The other one is just a nice one to have. The real good one is the President of the Ankole Society.
Well, well, the real good one is the President of the Ngobeni Society. I'm not really caring that much about being the President of South Africa. It's just something nice on the side to have. That's the President of our country. That's the man on whose hands we've put ourselves. Well, ladies and gentlemen, comrades, friends, the time had come for him to go back to the farm and be only the President of the Ngobeni Society. We don't want him anymore. Let us now proceed with a very, very important theme that we have very specifically selected with regards to the issues of the Office of the Public Protector, the critical role that the Public Protector plays in our society and in protection of our citizenry. I was part of the Constitutional Assembly that wrote this Constitution of ours. And when we dealt with those Section 9 organizations, and specifically with the Office of the Public Protector, great effort was made to make sure that the Office of the Public Protector will be empowered, but will also at the same time be protected from undue pressure and influence and trying to undermine that office, because it was clear to us right from the beginning that this office will have to do some very sensitive work, and many times will have to deal with the powerful people in our country. And we understood that that will include also the president of the country. So we understood that the power that the public protector must have must be one that cannot be undermined by any of those who the public protector will be investigating. Sadly, we've seen in the last period, actually almost right from the beginning, when Advocate Ngobeni was appointed as public protector, attempts to undermine her position, to attack her, to destroy that very treasured independence and power that the Office of the Public Protector should have. And there were legal attacks. We've seen those legal attacks, and recently, just the other day, when the Public Protector sent to President Cyril Ramaphosa critical questions about the whole Pala farm scandal, the day after that letter was delivered, she is suspended. Now, in politics, there's no such thing. In life, in fact, there's no such thing as coincidence. There was a direct relationship, and we know that, and we mustn't beat around the bush about it. But tonight is a night where we do play a couple of clips. And I want to play a short clip which comes from Justice Malambo, in which he, in the first part of this clip, deals with the powers, as he understands them, of the public protector when Advocate Thuli Madonsela was the public protector. And then the second part of this short clip, and it is really only 2 minutes long, he goes and makes a U-turn and go in directly the opposite direction in terms of trying to circumscribe the powers of the public protector as much as possible. Because in this instance, it is now applicable to Advocate Busisiwe Ngobeni. Listen to this clip. And after this, Paul, then I'm going to hand over to you to enter for us as speaker here. And subsequently, as I said, a little bit later in the evening, Kim Heller will join us. Here is Justice Malambo.
There is nothing in either the Public Protector Act or Ethics Act that prohibits the public protector from instructing another organ of state to conduct a further investigation. The Public Protector Act expressly empowers the Public Protector to obtain assistance in her investigations.
Now listen to the U-turn.
The Public Protector Act and the NPA Act are clear that she has no power to direct the NGPP to investigate any criminal offense and how to go about doing this.
Absolutely shameful. Direct contradiction. Let me now hand over to legal expert Paul Ngobeni to address us and give us an input before we open for our speakers, for our guests and everyone who are here, about the kind of attacks that we've seen on the Office of the Public Protector, the role that the Public Protector's Office should play, and specifically also the more recent developments around the attacks on the Public Protector and the attempts also now in Parliament to remove the Public Protector from her position. Paul, thank you so much. You've already once participated in one of these Twitter spaces when we greatly benefited from your huge wealth of knowledge, and we're looking forward to receive more from you tonight. The mic is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, and thanks for allowing me the privilege to participate in this particular discussion. What I want to do, just for introduction, I'm going to try to be brief, and then if you want me to elaborate on certain things that I've said, I will gladly do so. But I just want to make sure that I touch on all the key points that I want to touch on. You see, if you want to understand the attacks on the Public Protector, if you want to understand the hostility that has been generated against the Public Protector, you need to ask yourself, is this really based on her performance as they claim, or is this based on other political agendas? If you are to talk about her performance, the Public Protector, for the first time in 26 years of the existence of that office, she achieved clean audits 2 years in a row. That had never been done before. Even Tulima Donsela, she had irregular expenditure, all kinds of things. But for the first time that you have clean audits, that means that the money was not being misappropriated, it's not been stolen, has not been used for any other purposes. She used it exactly for the purpose that it was intended for. Two clean audits 2 years in a row. If you contrast that with what the Auditor General just said about a week ago, which is very scary, about the financial state of our municipalities, that some of them are at the risk of collapse because monies have been misappropriated and they all could not achieve clean audits. But that does not matter. Now here you have a government led by a man who claims to be the champion of anti-corruption and renewal of the ANC and clean government and so forth. He doesn't care about that. Doesn't matter what the Public Protector has achieved. What matters is what they want the public to believe about her and the propaganda that they want to drive in order to get her out of office. I'm just going to touch on a few things that as citizens we should be concerned about. There was a big hullabaloo about the rulings that the Public Protector made in the APSA matter. It was alleged that she is incompetent because she made recommendations for legislative changes, which the Public Protector Act and the Constitution do not allow her to make. But that was a big, fat lie. If you look at the historical origin of the Public Protector's Office, I'm just going to give you a brief synopsis of that. This office was first established in 1979, and it was then called the Advocate General. 1983, the Advocate General changed its name to Ombudsman. And the purpose of this Ombudsman's office was to ensure and maintain efficient and proper public administration. But please note this, one of the important functions of the Ombudsman at that time was that they were empowered to make recommendations for legislative changes. So here's an apartheid government that understood that as an ombudsman, you have a right to make proposals for legislative changes. And note this again, during the multi-party negotiations that preceded the 1994 elections, all the political parties in the multi-party negotiation forum agreed that South Africa should have a public protector, the ombudsman. Now, at no stage was it ever said that it's a sin for a public protector who is simply a successor to the ombudsman to make recommendations for legislative changes. But the problem here was not the public protector's competence or incompetence. The problem was that she touched the wrong people. She touched on APSA, in which the likes of Maria Ramos and others had vested interests. And if she was to continue, she will be touching Glencore, in which the president himself has huge investments. So the idea was that you needed to get Ngobeni gone at all costs, using all manner of lies if you have to. This has nothing to do with legal principles. I challenge anyone alive in this country to debate with me on that issue of whether or not the public protector, as a successor to the ombudsman, whether she has the right to make recommendations for legislative changes. Well, let's, and I'm glad that Comrade Carl says that he was part of the Constitutional Assembly at the time they were negotiating this new constitution. And I think he will probably remember more about what happened. So this notion that somehow this public protector is an ignoramus, has no idea about the law, and she doesn't know what an ombudsman or what a public protector does, it's a lie. South Africans should stop the idea of accepting lies just because they come from public officials. The other issue that I want you to deal with, which is very sad, and it's an issue that I think every South African should be ashamed of, is this notion that they say the public protector did not even know what the code of ethics applicable to members of the executive, that include the president and the cabinet, that she didn't even know which code is applicable. I've addressed that recently in an article I published that asked whether or not the public protector's impeachment is the ANC's Waterloo moment. I raised that question because the very panel that was assembled now, the earlier panel, that is the so-called independent panel, which consisted of former Constitutional Court Justice Nkabinde, Advocate Nsebeza SC, and Advocate Duval. That panel was headed by a former Constitutional Court judge. This former Constitutional Court judge says the public protector used a wrong code that didn't exist, essentially. But the same judge in the Nkandla judgment that involved Jacob Zuma, former President Jacob Zuma, used exactly the same code. You can go to footnote 8 of the Nkandla judgment. You will find that they used the 2007 code, which this public protector has used in adjudicating cases involving Ramaphosa. Because the 2007 code was more permissive, Ramaphosa argued that no, he should be judged based on an earlier superseded code, that is the 2000 code, because that one only prohibited intentionally misleading parliament. Whereas the one that was used in the Nkandla judgment said, even unintentionally misleading parliament counts and you will be convicted of it. Now, you can see the manipulation there. Here you have a panel that is whose report forms the basis for the impeachment of the public protector. That panel is led by a judge who, in a formal court judgment, endorsed the very code of conduct, 2007 code, that she is now saying that the public protector is incompetent for using. So if the public protector was incompetent for using that, that means the entire constitutional court that issued the Nkandla judgment was incompetent. Maybe they should all be impeached, or they should have been impeached because some of them are gone now. But that is the lack of integrity that we are dealing with when it comes to the public protector. She touched wrong people. She adjudicated cases involving banks, moneyed people. And as the president is now telling you that his real interest is in being in this Ankole society, president of Ankole society, is into money. This thing about being a president of the country is just a side gig. So if you attack him, or if you attack his interest in making money, he's going to make sure you suffer. Now this thing gets worse because the Constitutional Court just last year issues another judgment in which it not only says that the 2007 code that they used in the Nkandla judgment, they said, no, that code doesn't even exist. That is a judicial lie. How can you say a code that is incorporated in a court judgment that you signed off on does not exist? They go further and do something despicable and mean-spirited. They say that Advocate Ngobeni invented the code. Invented. She introduced a foreign element into the code. She invented it. She made it up. That's what they're saying. But is that in fact the case? Did she make it up? Absolute rubbish, and she did not. How do we know that? Throughout Thulima Donsela's term as the public protector, Thulima Donsela used the same, exactly the same 2007 code that Advocate Ngobeni has used since she was appointed. We know that because in a judgment, or in a report that Madonsela wrote about the late Minister Shiteka, you can go to that report. It's available on the internet. She specifically relied on the 2007 code. It's no doubt about it. And in another report that she wrote about Helen Zille, ironically, she relied on exactly the same code that we are told Ngobeni is incompetent for using and she must be impeached. Now, I'm not going to be long-winded, just two more points that I want to make. Now, when you have that type of lack of integrity again in government, you need to ask yourself, Is the problem this public protector, or is the problem a corrupt government that has no integrity? And I'm saying this because one of my friends recently confirmed, he was in the Public Service Commission as a chairperson, recently confirmed that the Public Service Commission has, for the past 10 years, been using the 2007 code that Ngobeni has been using. They've used that code to induct ministers, MECs, and other members of the executive who needs to be inducted on the code of ethics. Now, why would a court with any integrity say that the public protector invented this, made this up because she's dishonest and incompetent? Now it gets worse. And that's my last point. And then I'm going to just stop. And then if later on you want me to elaborate on certain things, I will. The last shameful aspect of it is this. This 2007 code we're talking about is the first portion of the ministerial handbook that all cabinet members have used since 2007. So here you are going to have cabinet members, including the likes of Blade Nzimande and Fikile Mbalula, who will be going to vote in an impeachment proceeding where they will be lying and saying that the public protector has invented her own code, has used a code that doesn't exist, when in fact the very ministerial handbook they have used every day since they were appointed as cabinet members is the 2007 code. So when people are saying they want to remove this advocate, a public protector, you need to ask yourself a question. With this type of evidence, clear, written, document evidence containing court judgments, and with the ministers, members of cabinet, MECs know exactly which handbook they've used since 2007. But today we are told they are going to go in there and vote to remove this public protector because she doesn't know which handbook applies and she doesn't know which code applies, and she has invented her own code and she has lied about that own code. So let me stop there, but it pains one to talk about the public protector's case, but it highlights just how corrupt. Corruption is not just about money, folks. Corruption occurs when people who lack integrity do the things that have been done to the public protector, starting with the judiciary. I'm able to say this freely about the judicial lie because I challenge anyone who can argue on this issue that a code that is referenced in a court judgment, explicitly referenced and has been used for the past 10 years, suddenly you are saying that this person is dishonest because she used it and that code doesn't exist and she now needs to be removed. I thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I think the essence of what we deal with is a system totally devoid of integrity. And everyone knows that that code does exist. And that is not the issue, by hook or by crook. Obviously, the instruction had been given, and I think you're quite right to say, also by the big financial powers, because in the work that she had done, the public protector had dealt with some of these big financial institutions, among them, as you indicated, ABSA. Tepo, do you want to help me to look out for Kim Heller? She should be joining us any moment from now. And then when she comes in, can you please indicate to me so that we can give her an opportunity to speak, so that we do not move too far on with the participants in this space before Kim can also make her contribution. But for now, I do want to open the space until Kim comes in and can participate as our guest. And the first person who has requested the mic that I want to give it to is Ngobeni Kisa. Can you hear that I'm speaking, Ngobeni? And can you please open your mic, because I see it's muted.
Thank you, Comrade Carl. Can you remind me? I was doing something. I didn't hear you.
No, it's fine, comrade. You requested to speak. I'm sure you participated in in listening to what Advocate Paul Ngobeni said. If for some reason you didn't hear that, perhaps we should hand over to another speaker if you find it difficult to come in and respond to his input.
No, let me not answer now, comrades. I think I'm not ready.
Okay, fine. We'll give you a chance at another time. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Ravogu. Sorry, I'm not sure about the pronunciation. The mic is yours. Okay, Ravogu is not responding. I'm going to give to Mr. Well, this is an interesting name, Mr. Uncommon. The mic is yours.
I might have requested the mic mistakenly, so sorry.
We seem to have a very reluctant group of people participating tonight. I was hoping for more speakers to come in, but it's okay. Thanks. I'm opening the mic now for Jakalska. But I see the mic is refusing to open. Jakalska, there's a problem. Let me remove some of you who have said that you may by mistake have joined us, so that I can bring other people in. Philani Mdluli. Philani, can you unmute your mic, because you've just muted it? Philani, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Okay, now your mic is unmuted. You can proceed, please.
Thanks, Comrade Carl. I think what an interesting view by Comrade Paul. I think although I've joined you a little bit later, but thanks again for the opportunity. I think it is clear, for everyone to see that there is a big fight against the current public protector. And I think a lot of people are sharing the same views in terms of the blatant abuse of power by our current president and his cabinet, which include the NEC of the ANC, that are standing as cheerleaders in terms of not challenging the decisions that are being taken the conflict of interest by Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. I think the views that have been shared by the law experts are very eye-opening at first, and then going forward, I think I've said this before, that we need to take these conversations a step further, so that we can ensure that more people are exposed to this information, because people are confused. They don't know what's happening. They only listen to radios and read newspapers, watch TVs, and all the news that are there, the lies and everything. That's what they consume, and that's what they use in terms of their judgments of who's anti them and who's pro them. So even with in the current situation, whereby you'd find that the analysis, the so-called political analysts are contradicting themselves, trying to spin this pala saga and trying to protect the president. Even as far as the opposition parties, some of them are mute in the pala saga. Some of them are mute in the abuse that is directed to Comrade Busisiwe Mkhwebane, of which people like us upload what she has done since she took up the office. The results are there for everyone to see, and there is no comparison with the previous public protectors. Although today she's deemed or she's her name is being tarnished, and then she's being declared as an incompetent public protector, of which, to me, she seems as the first public protector that has the interests of the previously oppressed in her heart. And with all the investigations that she has taken up, we know that those that are said to that she failed to defend them in court is simply because there are new laws where we find judges using their emotions, using their personal interest when they are writing the judgments or handing out judgments. Because even currently, with in the current situation, it's a matter of the laws that have been broken, but people that are defending are only sharing their views that according to their views, this is what should have happened, or this is what is supposed to have happened. So it is clear, comrades, that we are faced with a big fight, with a huge fight in terms of ensuring that our democracy is not abused, because currently it's well under fire by Ramaphosa's cult, and they are ensuring that everything goes their way. So, as I've said earlier, I think we really, Comrade Carl and all the other comrades, we need to take this to the people in the ground, ensure that they do understand what is happening and what is it that they can do or they need to do to ensure that they protect their public protector, because she also needs to be protected by all means necessary. Although they are saying that she must be removed by all means necessary, then the public should be saying that then we will protect her by all means necessary. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you, comrade. I'm going to ask Tommy to speak, and after that, I'm going to give an opportunity to Kim Hell, guest. Tommy, you should be able to speak now if you want to open your mic.
Thank you, Carl. Am I audible?
There you are.
Okay, thank you. What I can
Your
say,
sound is very bad. Can you try to speak perhaps closer to the mic or just do something else because it is muffled and unclear? Can you speak, please?
Yes.
There we go. Now that's good.
Okay, thank you, Carl. What I was, my input into this was going to be very simple, to say the common people on the ground do not have this information. Any of the works that the public protector does, nobody knows of it. In fact, people started taking interest in the public, most common people started taking interest in the public protector immediately when the media told them to do so, when they started to attack the former President Zuma. That's when people knew there's something called a public protector that will take up cases and so on. But how that came about, because of the infightings or the factions within the ruling party, the view changed. Whenever you come with anything else that's different as opposed to fighting the Zuma faction, you are seen or perceived as being one that's you standing with RET or you standing with this. So now people cannot even view their frustrations openly. So by saying that, I'm saying even with our broadcasters, the information that they give out to our people, it doesn't matter where they are. You go to local radio stations, they are funded by municipalities, most of them, or they get some of their fundings from local municipalities or the provincial municipalities, to which even those municipalities are very factionalized within themselves, or they have infightings. Therefore, the view that has to go out to the public is not the one that people will hear. Then secondly, whenever there's any information sharing sessions that has to take place, they are not truthful. All these things that the public protector has done, from her good deeds that she's done, from getting the audit outcomes that she's gotten, none of them are ever publicized, or people will never know about them. But what we do know, or whenever you go to the ground or you talk to anyone, what you'll find out is that no, that public protector, she's a Zuma this, a Zuma there, she's fighting for ACE or any of that. But it is never about what she has actually done. So my 2 cents on this would have been maybe a question rather to the former speaker, that I forgot his name, that what could we do possibly, especially for the ground people, for us that do not know more of these law terms or what's actually happening in law, because what we are fed is whatever the High Court has said, we take it as cast in stone, and that's just about it. It is not questioned. And the media, even them, they do not question it. So what can we do, even us on the ground, to ensure that, look, these infightings, these factions that are taking place, what the public protector is doing, it is not perceived as one of the factions? What could we possibly do? Because we will go and we want to march, and if we're going to take the same routine of marching in the same way, let's make an example of the EFF now. They forever marching. They have a huge crowd. However, do we ever get results from their marches? Do we ever hear that maybe say APSA is closed or ESCOM is doing what EFF was marching for? We do not, because I strongly believe that these one-day marches are really not assisting us. However, if you go and you look at the spring, what happened in Egypt or any of these other countries where people took maybe a day, the entire week, we say we're protesting for a certain cause, and we put everything to a halt, then people will start to listen. People will start to know exactly what is happening. But with what is currently happening now, the only things that we go about our business. We march today, tomorrow we go about our business. Currently, we're having so many terrorism acts that are happening within our country, within our space, yet nobody's talking of them. You go to Mozambique, which our neighbors currently, there's terrorism acts that are taking place. Even in Lesotho, there's terrorism acts. However, the ones that are happening here in our own space that can be linked to those infection. So maybe my question to the House today would have been to say, what do we do as common people on the ground, or even in future, to ensure that whoever is trying to fight a just cause is not seen or perceived as one of the factions or fighting for this, fighting for that, but is being a person that merely wants what's right for this country and not falling under any faction and not being victimized for anything. But what's happening currently, we are not organized at all. We especially us as Black Africans, we are really not organized. Hence, whatever we try to touch, whatever we try to do, it happens for a day. Tomorrow is forgotten. We move on. We get something else. We today have Phala Phala. Tomorrow we'll have something else. We'll have Nkandla. Today we'll have Phala Phala. Then we'll get something else, and we'll move on as if nothing has happened. So what more can we do? And I'm asking the honorable members in the House, or those that have gone through this route, on what can we do on the ground, because most people on the ground, especially the youth that we interact with, they are ready. Our people are actually ready. They are more heartful than anything. They're even willing to take up arms. However, if it is not organized properly, we're going to look into this country in the near future and will regret the opportunity that we missed by allowing everything to just go as it is going now. All our SOEs are being sold right in front of us. Yet nobody's taking a rise or a stand, because we're always waiting for the media to tell us. So what can we do more to ensure that these things, they actually stop, and as a country it comes together and we fight for a common cause without being labeled as factional? Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Tommy. And of course, no one is talking about taking up arms, but we are talking about the legal mobilization processes that are adequately provided in our Constitution. And I think part of what is happening now in terms of the outrage, and also part of the kind of mobilization that we reported about earlier in this space, is that expression which will go beyond the concern that you express of just a flash in the pan, a one-day event, but a much broader and much more sustainable people's movement acting within the law, and in fact utilizing the provisions of our Constitution for freedom of expression and making sure that we can move forward. I am happy that I can introduce Kim Heller. I'm sure Kim will pick up on some of these themes, also what Tommy referred to in terms of mobilization. Kim is an activist at heart. Kim, thanks for joining us. I know that you had to do another interview, and unfortunately, you were not being able to pick up on the first part of the discussion, the input that our guest Paul Ngobeni made, and also some of the comments that we've had. But I'm sure you'll pick up quite quickly on those. I'm very happy that you are here, that you can participate as an activist, but also, and I want to say it specifically, and this is no tokenism, also specifically as a woman, because we need to talk also about the manner in which the public protector is being treated because she is a woman. I'm absolutely confident that part of the attacks that have been launched until now in terms of the tone of those attacks would have been different if it was not also coming from our male patriarchal society and it is directed at a woman. When one looks at the social media spaces, the amount of sexism that comes out and is poured out also against our public protector is absolutely nauseating. Kim, I want to hand over to you. And I also want to invite, because I'm trying to go through those who've requested, and I see very few women requesting. In fact, Advocate Mpofu at our last Twitter space made the observation that there are few women participating. I really want to see more women coming in. After all, more than 50% of our society are women. So we need to hear the voice of our women. We need to hear the voice of those who have been the worst oppressed and suffering double oppression in our society. Kim, thank you so much for having decided to come in as a guest, although you had a very busy program this evening. I'm handing the mic over to you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. I apologize for being late, but perhaps it's interesting to reflect on an interview I was just doing. It seems both Carl and myself have been virtually banned from South African mainstream media. And what I seem to be doing is quite a lot of international interviews. I was doing one now, it actually lasted an hour. I do apologize, Carl, rather than 30 minutes as promised, where we were speaking about the phenomenon of white supremacy. And I was doing it with very, very, very progressive Black host who had recently been to South Africa, and he had made his own observations about the country. He spoke a lot about Black disunity, because he said to me, what I can't understand is that in South Africa, it's not like we are in America. Black people are in the majority, and yet there is no, it's as if they have no power. And we spoke about that phenomenon, and perhaps that I'll speak about that later, because nothing can be achieved on the premise of Black disunity. And perhaps it speaks to your previous caller, Tommy, about what has to be done, and whatever has to be done has to be done on the arc of Black unity that goes well beyond political persuasion. But on the theme of white supremacy, I think we're having this discussion because we have a public protector, perhaps for the first time. I don't want to make comparisons, but for the first time, who's actually touched the system of white supremacy. And she hasn't been suspended for anything other than touching that very system. And, the claims about, I'm not going into the legal issues, I'm sure Paul covered that very well, but there's no material evidence actually of any incompetence. There's just a great punishment of how dare she, particularly perhaps as a Black African woman, has done this to the system of whiteness that I was telling this American television channel exists today as prominently as it always has. In fact, we see, particularly under the Ramaphosa administration, the supersizing of whiteness, of the white voice, and of white power. And and perhaps just before I go on, sorry, I always deviate, is Carl, I do, we've had lots of differences on many things, but I support you so much on this platform because there are no platforms in this country at the moment that are being brave enough to speak about issues. But I also did say to you that I'm going to raise controversial issues today. So you may lose many of your guests, your listeners as I go along, because anyone who knows me will know that I speak the truth without much thinking.
I'm sure that we are quite robust. And
so I do apologize.
Sure, absolutely.
For diminishing your audience, because I think I may offend them, but I'm not doing it as an apology. I'm just doing it as a matter of fact. I was thinking about this topic, and I'm not going to go into the legal things, but I want to actually turn this into a moaning session about what are we doing to protect a woman who stood up, perhaps more than any of us realize, for ourselves, for the society, and not only for the current society, but for the society in the future. And it seems like there are very few activists. First of all, I'm not an activist. I actually am a white person who I still see myself as part of the oppressing group. But there are very few activists in this country that are doing what she is doing, that are prepared to make sacrifices. And I heard her speak in another forum yesterday. And she said, and people were worried about her safety. And she said, if I perish and I perish, it's a sacrifice I'm prepared to make. You know, it's very rare that in our current day South Africa, that we have activists that are prepared to make sacrifices. We have ANC ministers and ANC MPs who are so beholden to their material wealth and their positions that they are not even prepared to take a stance when they see a woman of this caliber, of this principle, being victimized terribly by a system. In fact, they're going to be participating in her downfall. They're going to be standing by the DA and voting against her. And you know what? I feel nauseated when I think of that there are so-called comrades that are going to be doing this very thing. And, you know, I was reflecting on something that Malusi Gagaba said in Parliament many, many years ago. And I want to read that out. He said, the truth is that there is a bitter struggle in South Africa between the former oppressors and those who they had oppressed for the right and power to determine the political direction of this country, as well as the ownership of its economic resources. I think we have to understand that the public protector...
Sorry, Kim. Musi, your mic is not muted and there's a lot of background noise coming from you. Niehaus, can you please mute your mic? My apologies, Kim. Please proceed.
So I think we have to contextualize this battle that the public protector is having to wage, and she's waging it mostly alone. It's an economic battle. She's touching, I mean, if we look at her first report on CX, she touched at the very heart of the financial institutions of this country. And what we're going to see is that the battle for liberation, economic liberation in this country is more fierce than the political battle. But what I'm seeing, if I was her, I would be wondering not only about the ugly noise that is made by opponents, the DA and the ANC and the DA-led ANC comrades and the media and the mainstream media, but I would be as hurt by the betrayal in the very silence of her so-called comrades. I mean, what are any of us doing to stop this violation on her? And perhaps this forum, Carl, is the first step. At least it's a recognition of saying, what do we do to defend this great person? But what I'm not seeing is comrades coming out and standing for her with that same view of, if I perish, I perish. Where are the black lawyers, for instance, the female lawyers? Where are the females? Where is the ANC Women's League, who I see, in my view, and if I can be correct, that league here, but I don't see them coming out in masses and supporting this woman. It's reminiscent of what happened to Winnie Mandela, where women did not stand by her. And I think that's outrageous. And I'm extremely aware of my status as a white woman. Perhaps I shouldn't be saying this, but I find it extremely problematic. Also, we have law academia in this country who are very, very quiet about this matter. There's no interrogation of the cases. And in their muteness, they are actually as bad. They might as well be the key crucifiers of the public protector, because silence is not a political stance. It's actually a betrayal. And what the ANC seems to have become very good at is betrayal of comrades. And I think we're sitting in that same situation. So I'm not going to say very much more, but I think we're faced with a situation of where factional hatred has become greater than the love of the people. And we have the public protector whose love of the people is greater than any factional interests. I mean, anyone who actually takes a proper look at the cases she's ruled against people on so-called factions. But what I'd like to suggest is that I think there needs to be a very firm program of activity and solution, just to actually raise the consciousness, perhaps even locally and internationally, on the injustice against the public protector. And that has to be beyond the ANC. I mean, I must say I'm quite skeptical of the RT forces, because I feel they always go into a state of paralysis when they should be going into a state of action. That's why I'm saying I think a lot of your people have probably switched off by now. But we have to, in this battle, to protect the public protector and also against the president, and these two cases are interlinked, is to take a unified approach. I think this friction between who's bigger, and it's such a male attitude between the ANC and the EFF, is absolute nonsense. Between the ANC and other groups, this requires the participation of groups across the spectrum. It requires the activation of legal people, academia, international people, and women. I mean, where are the women in this situation? Honestly, I feel quite ashamed. And we're facing a situation where ANC MPs are going to be voting with the enemy against a black woman. How do we allow that? Perhaps I'm just expressing my frustration rather than coming up with solutions. All I know is that if we allow this public protector to perish on the basis of our silence, that is the most unforgivable thing that we could be doing in the current day South Africa democracy. And let me end there, and perhaps I've provoked some thinking. And thanks once again, Carl. I think it's you're doing more good than people recognize, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Kim. And I think the issues that you are raised are absolutely pertinent. And what we see on the attack on our public protector is a direct factional attack, and attack by those who are the white monopoly capitalist interests in the society. I think we can say without any need to be contradicted that the public protector has done an incredible job during the period that she has been in that position. And she's earned for herself the right to be called the people's public protector. In fact, to a very large extent, I think we can say that this is the first truly people's public protector that we've seen in that office. And that is, I believe, the most important reason why she has been attacked in the manner that she has been attacked, and why it seems that there are those who want her removed at all and every cost, no matter how they behave and how they actually undermine their own integrity and the truth. I see that Comrade Patabile Dlamini has joined us, and I want to give her an opportunity.
Sorry, Comrade Carl, sorry, Carl. Before you give President Patabile, can you please give me?
No, I'm Lusanda, okay, but I want to follow certain rules in this Twitter space, and I will give it to you because you've asked. But at the same time, you must understand that myself as host and moderator will indicate who's the next to speak, because otherwise it is going to become a situation where people just barge in and say they want to speak. And those rules are there for a reason, because it allows us to have a properly ordered space. But okay, Lusanda, since you've requested, I will give you that opportunity, but I'm not going to allow people just to barge in and insist on speaking. I don't think that's the way we will manage the space. So after you've spoken, I will then give Comrade Patabile the opportunity to take the mic. Lusanda?
Apologies about that, Comrade Carl. Thank
Lusanda, you've disappeared. You started speaking and now your mic has died.
You must understand that this battle is very systematic.
Now, sorry, Lusanda, you disappeared. So for quite a while, we couldn't hear you. Can you start perhaps from the beginning, and then we will proceed from there. Thank you.
So the ANC Women's League has been disbanded, as we all know. So all of this is properly planned so that women aren't able to organize effectively in support of the public protector. I'm not saying that it cannot be done, but I'm saying that systematically and institutionally, the powers of the Women's League have been stripped away precisely to be able to deal with the PP and other matters concerning women and South Africa at large. There is a reason why this is done. There has been a growing trend amongst progressives to stifle the voice of women. We've seen it even in the outcomes of the different conferences that we've seen. So it's not by mistake that right now we do not have NEC or even a national task team after so long of the ANC Women's League to be able to organize women and fight for the public protector. It's not even a mistake that the public protector has been losing so many cases in court, because there's a deliberate attempt to weaken the office, to weaken the person, by making it seem like she's unable to win cases because her arguments lack merit, and we've seen that they don't. So for me, I think there is a need for Black people to come together, in spite of the organizations that they belong to, despite the organizations that they belong to, or the groupings that they may belong to. We need to organize, because this is, for me, an attempt to weaken democracy, to weaken progressive voices, to weaken the Black community at large. There is a need to come together across political lines, across party lines, and make sure that we protect the public protector, because at this point, we understand now why she's been fought the way she's been fought. Thank you.
Thank you, Lysanda. Comrade Patabile, I want to give the mic to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Carl, and thank you to Paul and Tsepo and other speakers. Kim has spoken about the Women's League, and maybe we should respond to there, and we were seeing the signs, and we even said to the officials, the president was also there. It doesn't look good when males or men in a patriarchal society attack women. The second issue we raised was the issue of step aside, that it was going to divide the ANC, that if we want it to be implemented, it has to be debated by branches, and it has to go to conference and be a constitutional prescript if we want it to work. Because if it's just raised out of the blue, and if it is just the NEC that takes a decision, yes, the NEC is the highest decision-making body between conferences, but there are decisions that have to be taken by the conference. we raised that issue too. We even raised the issue of the Zondo Commission, that it was going to divide the nation into two. We even made an effort. We said at the time it was going to be a handover at a superficial level from Comrade Jacob Zuma to Comrade Cyril. We organized an event, and he withdrew during last minute. We are women, and we can see things when they are not going the right way. And so we thought there should be a symbolic handover just to give a confidence to the nation, so that people can continue trusting the government, because we were more concerned about South Africans and the South African society more than the ANC, and that they must have confidence in government, and that there must be a good relationship between the leaders of the government as well as the African National Congress. I thought I should raise this issue so that people don't think that we are just flowers that are sitting there waiting to be decorated with positions, because people think we wake up when it's only time for elections. And then one of the speakers raised the issue of a week's demonstration and spoke about Eastern countries. Actually, Eastern countries hold 6 months demonstrations, and they are very forceful, and we have to learn what the driving force behind that is, because we've not been able to come out and stand for what we believe in, and the fear that has been instilled in us. Why are we so much fearful? I think sometimes we know the truth. We understand issues of justice and human rights, and we can see where there is manipulation, but we keep quiet, and we want to hide behind that South Africans or people do not understand what is going on, when we understand what is going on. And that is a problem. And South Africans deal with you when you raise an issue on Twitter. They insult you, and everyone keeps quiet, and people feel comfortable as long as it is not them. I also would want to say, maybe some think we are cheerleaders. When people spoke about cheerleaders this evening, in the morning again, I attended a session, a very good session by Comrade Dali. He was there. It took a very long time, and people were constant and consistent, and you do have a feeling that people are tired of what is happening, but who they think is going to stand up and fight their issues. Now we were called cheerleaders in the morning, and now we are called cheerleaders. I think it's the first time I serve in an NEC like this one, where views of one side are imposed in a meeting, where people do not want to listen to anyone. They want to listen to themselves. And that's going to be a very, it's a roller coaster towards an easy downfall. Because once you have people that want to impress a leader, you have a problem. If we had time, I would be speaking about situations where, as the Women's League, we've been able to challenge other leaders. But this time, even in the National Executive Committee, you have leaders that are well experienced, that are not listened to. And you have those that have the agenda that is not the agenda of the people, that have the support from some amongst us. So that is one other challenge. And South Africans also have a challenge of being materialistic. And once you have a nation like that, it's not going to be easy to deal with many issues. Because, you know, when the Phala issue came, I knew that the problem is going to be those that want to defend because they are defending their positions. One other issue that I would like to raise, it's the issue of factions. I think this is a construct that has been developed by a white monopoly capital to sideline views that come from other people. If you don't agree with a particular group, you are called a faction. And then once you are called a faction, in the ANC, when you are educated or given taught politics, issues of cliques, factionalism are discouraged. And therefore, if you are called a faction, people run away from you. And therefore, white monopoly capital has taken time to establish this construct so that everyone runs away from us, because others do not call themselves a faction. They think they are the ANC. Now, lastly, it's the first time I see, okay, women, South Africa generally is a patriarchal society. But this is the first government that has treated a women like this. During a COVID-19 period, Comrade Nkosazane was really ill-treated. Comrade Lindy, the media was on her. And I think the person that has really taken a lot is the public protector. And I agree that something must be done to stand to protect or to fight. We have to fight this injustice, because it is an injustice. It is heartbreaking, actually. Thank you, Comrade Khan.
Thank you, Comrade Batabile. And I think we must say that you are one of those women who have stood up and fought. And as the president of the ANC Women's League, and for having stood up and fought, you paid a severe price. You've been targeted. Attacks that we've seen so many times. So yes, Comrade Batabile, we thank you for your input. I also, while I was listening to you, was remembering when I was still as one of the members of the Office of the Secretary General, and I could sometimes attend and observe this current National Executive Committee. In a previous stage, I was a member of the NEC, so I could also make a comparison between the two NECs. Without any doubt, this is the worst NEC that the African National Congress has ever had. It is made up out of howlers. Either you agree with what the majority wants to push through, either you sing the praises of President Ramaphosa, or when you stand up, you are being howled down. There is intolerance of the worst kind. We are experiencing, in my mind, a growing dictatorship. Even for us here in society, when we express our views, when we utilize the freedom of speech that is provided for in our constitution, we get attacked. Today, actually since yesterday, there's been a growing and repetitive messaging, and I can see it's deliberately done against me in social media and specifically on Twitter, saying that I am going to be charged and that I'm going to end up being imprisoned. For what? For speaking my mind, for having a Twitter space where we speak our mind. So this is the kind of intolerance, this is the kind of undemocratic conduct, this is the way in which this society is stifling freedom of speech and the expression of opinions. I want to give an opportunity to Nati. Nati, I see you have requested to come in, then you fell out, now you're back. I hope you are there and that you can open your mic to speak. Nati?
Good morning. Good evening, Comrade Carl. I was a bit busy. Then I
No, Nati, are you ready to speak?
Yes. Good evening, Comrade Carl, and good evening to your guest, and also good evening to the president of the ANC Women's League, Comrade Batabile Dlamini, and the rest of the listeners. Comrade Carl, we are going to support any initiative as ANC members in our society. We're going to support any initiative that have to do with voicing out our concerns as the society, as ANC members. And we are not going to hide who we are when we go there, because we are not indirectly affected. We are directly affected by all the failures of the current administration led by President Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa. So it's not that because we are ANC members, we are all corrupt or all incompetent merely because we joined the ANC. We joined the ANC for many reasons, and some of the reasons is that the ANC portrayed itself to us as a leader of society. So when the society is affected, that's what we actually taught in the ANC, that we must always be where the society is. So we know what is wrong, and as the ANC members, we are not going to defend things that we did not agree on when we deployed President Ramaphosa and all his cabinet, because we are very clear as the ANC that, and when our last conference resolutions, we're very clear that we are going to implement radical economic transformation, as it is already the policy of the ANC, adopted by the branches of the ANC, and that has never happened. Instead, we've seen comrades that we know who are fighting for us, like Comrade Ace Magashule. He is removed, and we do not know why he is removed. And we want to put it on record that as branches of the ANC, We are not happy about that, and we are going to engage on it, and we are not going to be kind to even the ANC and EC, because they were there on charges that are really not making sense to us, especially when you are looking at what is happening in the country right now with the president of the country and the president of the ANC. So we are pledging and we are begging all the ANC and EC members who are not telling him the truth, who are not questioning anything. All of them, they treat him like a god that they are worshiping. They don't ask him anything. When you look at the structures of the ANC, it looked like it only the ANC, NEC that will be left as a structure of the ANC would have executive powers, because it is led by Cyril Ramaphosa. Other than that, you look at the ANC Youth League, it is now led by a task team by somebody that has never even led a mere branch, but he's now a convener of the ANC. She's now the convener of the ANC Youth League. You now go to the MKAVA, it's also led by people who were not directly voted by the branches of the veterans. You go to the Women's League that was led by President Bathabile Dlamini. It's now going to be led by a task team. So this is a system that is used to weaken structures of the ANC so they cannot voice out their concerns. Because when you talk of activists, as ANC members, we're also activists. The fact that we joined the ANC does not make us less of activists, because we sit around societies and we have concerns just like any other citizen in South Africa. So we also getting weakened by the ANC NEC. When you look at all the structures of the ANC, they are now task teams. When you look at provinces, some of them, like provinces like Free State, they are also led by task teams that you actually don't know who are these people.
Nati, I'm going to interrupt it. I know that all these issues about the ANC is foremost in your mind, but at the same time, let's not concentrate too much now about that structural stuff of the ANC. We've got a specific topic that we're dealing with tonight, and that is around the public protector and the repression there. So without trying to muzzle you, I'm just trying to ask you and all the other speakers who come in to steer back to the topic of the evening. Thank you. You can proceed.
Okay, no, thanks a lot, Comrade Carl. Yes, I know it's quite a lengthy debate if we take it that way. I'm sorry about that, but we also want to put it on record that the ANC NEC must know that how our public protector has been treated is not what we agreed on in terms of dealing with Chapter 9 institutions, because it's not the first time in the country that we have a public protector who have reports that might actually implicate a president or whoever. But we have never seen what is happening now, that you can attack the office of the public protector merely because there are reports, and those reports you feel they implicate you. So it is not the wishes of us as ANC members to see a president of the ANC, a president of the country, treating a public protector like this. And we want to assure our public protector that as ANC members, we are going to support her, and we are going to raise it in our meetings. Everywhere we go in our rallies, we are going to raise it even in front of the leadership, that we do not want to see a public protector or a woman who is a public protector treated like this, because as ANC, we protect everyone in our constitution, in our policies. We are very much clear that we will protect even the public institutions that were established by us. So we are not really supporting the way in which President Ramaphosa has treated the public protector. We know this is not like a constitutional way of dealing with things. It is fictional, and we are not going to allow the ANC to engage in use its fictional dynamics in running the businesses of the country. Thank you very much, Comrade Carl.
Thank you, Nati. And the point, I think, well taken, that the African National Congress, through its official structures and also through its members of parliament, is behaving despicably. The ANC, in the way that it is treating the public protector, is a disgrace. And that should be said by everyone. Those of us who are members of the African National Congress, but I also think the broad society in South Africa must register, whether we ANC members or not, must register our outrage about this. And of course, this platform, it is a broad platform. It is not just there for ANC members. It is here for anyone who want to participate and want to be part of social responsibility and who are progressive people who want to see a society that is going to succeed, and especially a society that serves our people. I'm now going to hand the mic over to someone who's got a very interesting Twitter handle. I am already dead, do or die. I see you put your hand up several times, so you must be itching to speak. The mic is yours.
Yes, comrade. Yes, comrade Cow. Thank you very much for this. Twitter space is very enlightening. For me specifically, I want to raise two issues. As I was listening to the president and the chief justice today, as they hand over, as the chief justice handed over the state of culture report, I noticed two things. One of it is there was a point when Karen Mon said that they were instructed not to ask the president about Palapala, which is very much shocking. Because it's now like losing now the media. Imagine if that happens, I understand, even in USA. We see them, they ask the president anything, even the question that the president doesn't want. So how does that happen now that the president decides which questions the media must ask? So to me, that was very much weird. And another point again, people, they didn't very much notice it. When the Chief Justice was responding to a question about the perception of bias, regarding the phone call that the Chief Justice had with the president. So it was very much awkward. The response from the Chief Justice, okay, no, let me correct myself. They were asking about why they did not investigate, especially the NPA. So the response of the Chief Justice said, we told the president that you're not going to investigate the NPA, which is rather a contradiction, because earlier on, they had said that when the Chief Justice meet the president, they are not discussing the substance of the investigation, but they are discussing issues that is to do with the budget of the commission. So to me, it was a very much a red flag that the substance of the investigation itself, not merely discussing the budgetary issues that are relating to the state capture. So to me, these two issues, they raise too much they raise red flags, very concerning to the South African democracy. I thank you.
Thank you. And I think the whole manner in which this final report was presented, over and above the rest of what happened around the commission into state capture, it is evident that there were all kinds of shenanigans going on, including this afternoon where the report was hours late presented, and it was clearly that there had been improper interactions between the president and the Chief Justice in dealing with this report and how it is managed. Yes, I am not surprised, I must tell you, that now we are having press conferences where the media are being put in a his presidential campaign and also his presidency now was absolutely PR driven. And it was never a situation where he himself was able to speak. One doesn't really know if he's able to speak without that iPad of his. But anyhow, let's leave that there. X-Man, I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak. After that, I'm giving an opportunity to Mokhalabai, and then I'm winding up. It is 9 o'clock. I'm going to allow X-Man, can you just mute your mic until I'm finished speaking? Then you can take the mic. Then I'm going to give the mic to Kim Heller to make her final inputs, and also to our other guest, Paul Ngobeni, and then Tepo and myself will wind up. X-Man, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Comrade Carl. To Sepo, thank you to Prapol. Really, you make me feel like I was in heaven when you start giving that bravely information. And thank to Our Lady Kim Hiller. I know you. We are a revolutionary. We are consistent. Last time we talk about the was donated by White Monopoly Capital. And that president, at the time the donation was issued, he then decided to close those, not to he seal the bank statement. And then now, because he's not a transparent guy, then we have our ladies PP who say, all right, we want you to be transparent like a president because your office is the top in the country. And then even before we went for Nasrec, the public protector touched the Bangkok saga, touched the Afsa saga, and she was start attacked there and there. She was even at one stage, if I remember, called a spy. Okay, but I tell you, a guy like a person like our public protector, to me, is a crocodile. Ingwenye. Is like our advocate Dalita Mpofu, because that guy is Ingwenyeni, because he that destroying these two guys left and right. So our public protector need protection. I think we need to really work hard to go onto the ground and teach the groundwork to say, this lady need protection. This lady is not fighting politics, is not fighting anything. She's fighting economic sabotage. She's fighting economic that is going away from the hands of Black people. So now, I said my discussion will be a little bit split into two. The second thing that I think we all know now, I want to say what we know, what we should do. What we know that our judiciary system and Cyril Ramaphosa, we have evidence of corruption on Cyril Ramaphosa. We have evidence on tainted judicial system. Judicial system, if you look at Mlambo judgment against Tulima Tonzela and against the PP, he contradicted himself. And I think Paul, he put it clearly that these are gangsters. We are being, I don't know, we're being harassed by this system or by this constitution or the judiciary. So we need to do something about that. And then the second thing, again, I think there are guys, because on the space here, there's a lot of Askari and sellouts and stooges. And again, there are guys here who comes around like constitution.
Excellent. I don't think we are going to start using this space to say there's Askaris and stooges here. I'm not judging anyone. If anyone wants to come in who's not part of us, wants to sit and listen, wants to participate in the discussion, let it be. Let us not start going down that route of starting to call people names, because the space is a public space. We allow that, although we are clear who we are and we know what we are working for. Okay.
Okay, all right, comrade. If you say that, I'll bite to that. But I was concerned during the day on Dali Mpofu space when the constitution was really becoming dangerous. Okay, maybe that's why I'm just saying that, because constitution was trying to to find a wrongdoing on the people's advocate. I was annoyed by that, but I don't want people like that. If it could happen, that people like that, but because of democracy, you allow them to be there. Okay. But to me, I think we should go back and form a black power. We should go back and form a black power equivalent or above Afro-Forum. When we form this black power, because we can't be talking and talking. Let's go back to what and say what was stolen since the democracy. What was sold during democracy? What was sold away? I think ESCO was sold. I think Vodacom was sold. I think the silo, the farm silo were sold. And then the other SOEs that are being are put on the sale now is ESCOM, SAA, and other SOE. I think those guys, if we allow that to happen, then we will not create business, we will not create factories in our country. If we go back and say we want all these things, because this organization, I think we are trying to form as Black Power, which is equivalent to Afro-Forum, must then be sent by us to say, what happened to ISCO, what happened to Vodacom, what happened to Silos, and what is happening to SOE now? We want this thing to be restored as they were before. And then, again, if we can have that, I think Black people can start creating factories. But because the balance of power, if you look at I'm sorry that there's people who are dying at Ukraine, both sides. But because of the
X-Men, sorry, can you start winding up, because you're making a very long input, and I want to give one or two other people who have requested to speak still a chance before we wind up. We're close to winding up. So can you just make your concluding remarks so that we can move on to the next speaker?
Okay, we are on him or on me today, comrade. Yeah? But anyway, but after all these that I have said, at the end of the day, we must say we want our land back. That's where I can park.
Okay, thanks, X-Men. I'm giving the mic to Mfalasi MFD, and after that, I'm giving it to Mokhalabai, and then we will wind up. Those two are the last two people who've requested to speak who has been given the mic. The mic is yours.
Thank you very much, comrades. Am I audible?
Yes, you're loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be short and precise on what needs to be done, specifically on the issue of the public protector, because we are being undermined by the brothel animal owner, which is our sitting president. One, we need to put pressure on the acting public protector to take decisive actions on what needs to be done. Secondly, comrades, Batabile, comrade, and all the comrade Nati and all those comrades who are within the ANC structures must start mobilizing branches to put pressure on the structures of the ANC so that the president can be recalled and so that and address these issues. Because, comrades, we are being undermined. If we still had radical or revolutionaries within the country, I guarantee you now, the country would be standstill by now and ungovernable. We cannot allow this man to undermine us, both him and Zondo. Thank you.
Thank you. Mukhalabai, the mic is yours. Okay, Mukhalaba is not opening the mic. I'm giving it to Real Democracy. Real Democracy.
Good evening, Carl. Thank you for this opportunity. And I'm also going to be quite brief. Firstly, we want to say that we are 100% behind Advocate Ngobeni as public protector. And I think we need to look for solutions regarding how can we bring her back into office and remove the suspension, because the suspension was brought upon by one of the accused, and I don't think that is something that is normal practice. So let's look at all the legal aspects of how she can be reinstated, taking to the Concord to on an urgent basis to a high court or whatever can be done on a in the legal space. The next thing I would like to say is that we shouldn't give Cyril the honor of calling him our president. He's no leader. He is led. And we have to recognize that he has handlers. These decisions are not his, and we need to recognize that. I think that's all I want to say, Carl.
Thank you so much. And I think the points that you made are well taken. Yes, indeed, we do not have a president. We do not have a real leader. And that is reality. And that is why we are going to campaign to make sure that this man goes. Ramaphosa must go. He is not worthy of being the president of our country. I played at the opening of this Twitter space Ramaphosa reading out the oath of his office. And I think all of us understood how he flagrantly breaks that oath and how he's treating our nation in the most despicable manner. I want to hand over to Kim Heller to make her concluding remarks, and then we will move on to Paul and to Tsepo. Kim, the mic is yours.
Thank you. You know, it's quite interesting to hear people, or the last call and others saying, Ramaphosa is not our president. But you know, the very same people voted for him. And anyway, I just want to say I've never called him my president, and I was very vocal in not supporting him. But that said, you know, the problems, and I've said it, and this is where I differ from many ANC members, is that the problem is not Ramaphosa. The problem is what the ANC is like at the moment. And the issue of the public protector provides it a really critical inflection point for ANC people. I mean, you know, the ANC is spending more time on trying to attack the public protector and institute these parliamentary hearings against her. If they spent just a fraction of their time on land, on helping people who are perpetual victims of poverty, this country would be a lot better. But you know, I think we need radical. We haven't got into the solutions, and that's unfortunate. But I think this calls for drastic action. You know, I would like to see the ordinary ANC members saying, "Not in my name will this public protector go. Not this. You know, this is not acceptable." I'd like to see MPs saying, "This is not worth it because my soul cannot allow me to vote with a DA against a woman like this." And I mean, I don't know where the courage of the ANC is, if they ever had that, for MPs to walk out of their cozy positions and say enough is enough. And for the NEC to resign. I mean, they talk a lot and they complain a lot, but where is their action? And I think we should be demanding that. If they're unhappy about this, they must actually just take dramatic action. And if they lose a few material beings, so what? Here is a woman who's putting her life at stake. I mean, people probably don't know, but I was reading some media reports about after CX, how her house was invaded, how her family was violated. This is a woman who's putting everything on the line, and yet we have NEC members and MPs just holding those positions. You know, I think it's quite appalling. And you know, So in conclusion, I'm drawing, one of the articles that shifted me and actually moved me from the ANC was an article written by the People's Advocate, Darlene Polfo, who said, I never left the ANC. The ANC left me. And that's the state. And I think for the ANC members here, because to some extent this feels like an ANC branch meeting, I think it's time to say, on where do I stand? Because is the ANC standing with ordinary people? Is the ANC standing with true activists like the public protector? And if the ANC is on the opposite side to the well-being of true democracy and the ordinary people of South Africa, who the public protector is trying to defend, then maybe it's time to say this is not the ANC that I want to defend. Thank you, Cole.
Thank you, Kim. And just to put one thing straight, although it may feel like that, this is not an ANC branch meeting. It is a much broader forum, and we intend to keep it broad. It is not going to become party political. But yes, I agree with you. Members of the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, like everyone in society, should show their mettle and stand up and be prepared to be counted. The same thing should be true for our members of parliament. I can say without any doubt that if I was still a member of parliament, I would have refused to vote in this vote against the public protector. And if it costed me my job, then so be it. And the time has come for all of us in this community, whether the ANC members or not, to demand from our public representatives to stand by their principles and also to live out the oath that they take when they become members of parliament and members of provincial legislatures, etc., etc. And if they do not do so, let them pay the price. Let us remove them if they do not have the guts to move, to stand up for their principles, and if necessary, to lose their jobs. One of the things that irritate me immensely is how there are those who sometimes say they are with us. But when the time comes for them to stand up and stand by their principles, they use this word strategy. No, it is a strategy for us to behave like this and that. And the whole issue around strategy becomes so compromised that it becomes far more about how I keep my salary, how I keep my nice car, how I make sure that I continue to benefit from the privileges that I have as a public representative. And surely none of those who've been elected to those positions should have been elected for those positions for the sake of those largesses and for the sake of the privileges that they have. They should have been elected on the basis that the people vote for them to be their servants. I hand over to Paul Ngobeni for his concluding remarks.
Hey, thank you, Comrade Carl. I am one of those people that always complain that you need to extend this thing. I know you're a human being, you get tired, but you need to extend this thing because there's still enthusiasm for people to engage in everything. I mean, I was listening to the X-Men and the lady comrade that spoke before him. And I also listened to Comrade Bathabile Dlamini, whom I have great respect and admiration for. I listened to Comrade Kim. I wish that you could have this space extended for more discussions because there's a lot of things that came out here. But look, the reality is this. We are dealing on the issue of women and how this particular president is dealing with women. Let's start with the case of Nomgcobo Chiba. Chiba was disbarred completely by a certain Judge Lehori out of the North Gauteng High Court. She takes a case to the Supreme Court of Appeal. The Supreme Court of Appeal rejects that judgment and say, you are not to be disbarred. They say that the judgment of that Judge Lehori was, quote, bizarre. The reactionaries appeal to the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court agrees with the SCA. So the woman is cleared. She is, instead of being cleared in Ramaphosa's eyes, he sets up a panel, he goes out and recruits a former Constitutional Court judge, Mohoro, whose husband he has just appointed as the Northwest Premier, her ex-husband, whatever. She comes up and says, despite all these court judgments clearing her, she still can be dismissed. She must be dismissed because of the very accusations that were made that were rejected by the courts. That's Ramaphosa for you. That's the kind of guy that he is. You come to the issue, this recent issue of Judge Maya. A woman goes through an interview with 4 males or 3 males, I can remember. She outperforms all of them. She comes out number 1. The JSC recommends that she should be appointed Chief Justice. Ramaphosa says, no, let me appoint Zondo. Because Zondo owes me one. He owes me a vindication. He owes me a cleansing. That I will not let Zondo go until he cleanses me. Even if Zondo came out dead last in that interview. The ridiculous part of it is that this week, we witnessed a spectacle where a woman was recommended by the JSC to be the Chief Justice is now being interviewed by the JSC to be a Deputy Chief Justice. What kind of idiocy is that? There are headwinds against women because of historical factors. Women have been the most oppressed, the most discriminated against, and as Comrade Batabile said, we live in a patriarchal society. But we have reached a point where the sense of outrage we should have, the sense of saying, how do you interview a person who 3 months ago, you are just recommended to be a Chief Justice. Now you are interviewing her again to determine whether she can be a Deputy Chief Justice. And this is a country with supposedly the most beautiful constitution. I think it's an insane country. We are reaching a level of insanity collectively as a society if we can allow that kind of crap. I'm sorry to, I withdraw that. This is not the language I wanted to use. But if we can allow that type of nonsense, let me put it that way. Now you again deal with, it's a society where Minister Sisulu, Lindiwe Sisulu, writes an article, an intellectual article where she's raising issues about the judiciary and about justice and all of that. People that I even thought were dead came out of retirement. The likes of Paulo Jordan, the likes of Msimang, you name all of the ANC intellectual heavyweights came out to attack her. They were so outraged by her that they came out to attack her. But
Paul,
they are not outraged.
Paul, I'm not going to object that you call crap, but I'm really going to object that you call Mavusi Msimang an intellectual heavyweight. Please.
Okay, I would throw that. But what happens? They all came out like roaches out of the woodwork to attack a comrade publicly for simply expressing her views about the judiciary. And yet, when you go to the ANC's own policy, ANC documents about the so-called battle of ideas, the ANC has instructed all of its cadres to get involved in the debate, in public debates on battle of ideas, to write articles, to engage in those public debates. But this time, because Ms. Lindiwe Sisulu is viewed as a potential rival to Ramaphosa, she gets attacked left, right, and said, I'm just elaborating on this thing that, this theme that Comrade Batabile came up with. Batabile Jamin, Ms. Batabile Jamin, Minister Batabile Jamin, I'm sorry. But I am just incensed that you have an ANC that has members, senior cadres who are outraged by that. And yet, when it comes to the issue of land and the land restitution, they couldn't even muster enough votes because their DA that they are in cahoots with refused to vote with them. They could not get that. So you are going to tell an ordinary member of the public today that you should trust this same ANC that when it comes to land, they cannot muster enough votes. But when it comes to removal of the public protector, they have all the votes in the world to get the 2/3 to remove her. I mean, look, we are reaching a level of insanity. Same president says, when he's asked about the Pala farm, says, no, all the due process, I'm waiting for due process. Where is due process in the step-aside policy? Comrade Bathabile Dlamini raised a critical issue. It's a constitutional, it's a fundamental legal issue. The step-aside policy is not just divisive as far as ANC goes. It is the violation, is the antithesis of due process. Because it says, simply because you have been charged, without going into the merits of the charges, we want you to step aside because someone else's opinion is that you should be charged, that you are guilty of something. That is the antithesis of due process. But Ramaphosa has reserved it for himself that no, if you are going to challenge me, my due process rights must be respected. When the issue of his funding came up, CR17 funding, he went to the Integrity Committee with a retinue of lawyers. He demanded that his rights should be respected, and he was very angry about that. There is a documentation of that. When the Pala thing comes up, he cannot tell us where those dollars, millions of dollars came from, why they were in mattresses and in couches, because all the due process must unfold. Now, when you tell someone who's simply been charged, the Constitution says that person is entitled to presumption of innocence. But you're telling that person that they must step aside because it's the ANC policy. No due process for them, but Ramaphosa always find a way to get due process for himself. Now, the issue of the public protector, the most despicable, really disgraceful aspect of it is this. It was the court, the constitutional court, the highest court in the land, that says the public protector has adjudicative powers and her reports, her recommendations are binding unless set aside by the court. And under our constitution, she has the same right to decisional independence that our judges do have. Now, how every week, I challenge you to just go to the legal websites, read every week, there are judgments that come out of the courts where they reverse, the higher courts reverse the findings of the lower courts. Judges have put people in jail for more than 10 years, 20 years, only to be reversed later. But none of those judges have ever been found to be incompetent, or there have never been calls for them to be removed. Now, if the public protector has the same decisional independence that these judges do have, why are we now mobilizing people, mobilized by racists from the DA, to say that simply because she got something wrong, assume they're correcting something wrong? Nobody is perfect. Why can't she be given the same degree of independence as the judges whose judgments are overturned? If a judge got it wrong, put you in jail wrongly, and you appealed, Advocate Mpofu will take your case, you go to the Supreme Court of Appeal, you win, and then you get out of jail. That judge who sentenced you and wrongly convicted you is not going to be removed. In fact, the JSC's own policy says complaints that have to do with the merits of the judge's ruling are to be automatically dismissed. But in the public protector's case, we have put her in a space where, on the one hand, the judiciary says, whatever she says, you know, she has the same adjudicative independence or decisional independence that the judges do have. But if any of her judgments get reversed, she is to be chased out and be labeled as incompetent. And I think that has to do with the fact that she's a Black African woman. And this is how we treat Black African women. And we have a president whose record, as far as we can see, is so anti-woman, is so anti-African women, that I gave you examples with how he treated Judge Maya. I gave you an example with how they treated Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, where the ANC's own policy says she must speak, she must write, she must get engaged, she must debate issues. Go and read the ANC's policy on the so-called Battle of Ideas, starting ironically from 1997, during Mandela's time. So on the last thing I would say, and the last thing I would say, I mean, I'm getting very carried away and very emotional, because what has happened to the public protector has made me lose all the confidence I had in the judiciary. It has forced me to spend sleepless nights, ask myself questions about where do you, in any country, where do you find judges who lie about a litigant or lie about the law in order to disadvantage a litigant? They say the code that you have used is wrong, you invented it, there was no such thing. And yet they themselves, the highest court in the land, has a judgment in which they use that same code. Your predecessor has used the same code. Members of parliament who have been there longer than or let me say for the past 10 years, know that that code exists because they use it even against the likes of Dina Pule and others. Members of the executive, cabinet ministers, Blakey Nzimande, Mbalula, they every day they have the so-called handbook, ministerial handbook in their office. In that ministerial handbook, the first few pages of that have the code that the public protector used. But she is today accused by the highest, the apex court in this country. She's accused of inventing that code, making it up, and being so dishonest that she needs to be removed. And if you are a citizen who is going to be willing to accept for a minute, for a nanosecond, that kind of rubbish, you don't deserve South African citizenship. You don't deserve to call yourself a human being or a citizen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. And thanks for both the passion and also the intellectual clarity with which you deal with these issues. I understand your concern about the length of the space. The problem is for us to find a balance between, on the one hand, that it's in the middle of the week, it's a weekday, on the other hand, giving as much freedom for participants to speak. I'll engage further and see whether for later spaces as they come, we can perhaps go up to 10 o'clock, but I don't think it will really be reasonable to go beyond 10 on a weekday. And remember, we've got 2 spaces a week, also the Sunday space, which starts at 5 o'clock, and the last one ended at 9 o'clock. So again, I extend my apologies to any of those who requested here in the space to speak and who haven't received the opportunity tonight. Please do not let that discourage you. Please come back. We will try and find whatever is the balance in terms of time, but at the same time to allow as many people to speak as possible. I now want to give an opportunity to my co-moderator, Tsepo Khadimat, to also make his concluding remarks. And at the same time, those who were in the spaces before will recall that in one of those spaces, Advocate Dali Mpofu said, we really need a space about the state of the South African judiciary. And I think that links very well with the comments, especially the last comments that Paul made. So we've decided that there will be a space on the South African judiciary, the state of the South African judiciary. I haven't yet had a chance, because both of us were very busy today, to discuss with Advocate Mpofo his participation, but I want to really urge him, because the idea originated from him, for him to participate in this space. There's also going to be a number of other guests that we want to invite, who will be giving personal examples of what happened to them and the behavior of the South African judicial system and the victims that they've become because of that. I'm handing over to Tsepo to give us a little bit more input about what's coming up on the Sunday space. That space is going to be the 26th of June, and that starts at 5 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. Tsepo, over to you.
Thank you. Reached this evening by the input from all the participants, as well as our guests that have spoken. And I think from these discussions, it is very evident that in Cyril Ramaphosa, we have president, imperial presidency, which the Constitution of the Republic does not make provision for.
Tsepo, your line is problematic. We are not able to hear you breaking up. Can you perhaps try to move around or try to do something with your mic? Tsepo, can you hear us?
Yeah. Is it clearer now?
I'm afraid that we've lost Tsepo Khadima. So unfortunately, we will not be able to benefit from the input that he was going to give us. You're back. Try to stay where you are, because we can hear you for one sentence and then you're gone. Try again to speak, please.
Comrade Carl, I think
we can't hear you, Tsepo. You're breaking up quite badly.
Let's move on to
yeah, I'm afraid it is not possible to get your input, because it just keeps on breaking up so badly that we cannot hear you, regrettably. But let me emphasize again that we will have then on the 26th of June, which is coming Sunday, a Twitter space about the state of our judiciary. And we will announce in the next day or so those who are participating in that space. And as I've said, I hope that Advocate Dali Mpofo will be able to avail himself. Obviously, the current context in which we find ourselves, which also includes the current Phala Phala crime disaster and everything around President Ramaphosa, his actions also against the public protector, and all the other issues and problems that there are in our judiciary and in our legal system, will become part of that space. As we've indicated at the beginning of this discussion, we will also provide, as we've done in this space today, a report back on what the situation is with regards to the planning. We will specifically also report back about how that committee of civil society groups and people that Advocate Mpofo extrapolated on a bit further than what I did, is being put together, and especially also how we are setting up a trust account with proper oversight and with a committee that will be managing it, and how contributions can be made as a true people's financing process of the campaign that we want to see unfold. That report will also happen on Sunday, the 26th. I want to thank, let me hear, Tepu, I see your mic has appeared back on the screen. Can you try to unmute it and let's see if we can hear you? Tepu, have you unmuted your mic? No, I'm afraid it's not workable, unfortunately. Then on next Wednesday, the 29th of June, we are going to have a Twitter space about the current situation with regards to Russia and Ukraine. And I've invited the Russian ambassador to join us for that space. There will also be other guests that we will announce in due course. And I'm sure it will prove to be a very interesting discussion about the situation in Russia. But of course, as long as the current crisis unfolds itself with regards to President Ramaphosa, we will continue to have report backs and use this space also as part of mobilization throughout. I'm seeing that I'm getting a call from Advocate Dalian Pofo, so he is on the space. I will allow him to come in, and then I will conclude. I'm going to return the mic to Advocate Pofo. Let me just open his mic. Dali, you are on. You can speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Comrade Carl. No, sorry, man. I just wanted to, for the sake of completion, just to complete the point that Paul Ngobeni was making about Ramaphosa's anti-women credentials, that it's not just confined to the public protector and even to the Mandi Samaya examples. Let's not forget that in October last year, the JSC interviewed 5 candidates for Constitutional Court judges, where there were 2 excellent women candidates who were shortlisted and given to him. And he appointed 2 males, Judges Matopo and Judge Kolapen, overlooking those 2 women. The same 2 women in April this year applied, and they did very well. And he appointed a white male a month ago, or 2 weeks ago. And let's not forget the domestic worker who was tied up and tortured at Phala Phala. So, and let's not forget why he's called Cupcake. So if anybody really has any doubts about that this is a person who is an enemy of gender equality, then I think if you combine all those examples together with what Paul Ngobeni said, then I'll be like Kim to wonder why any African would ever vote for such a person. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Mpofo. I think that was an important contribution. And while I've got you back online, I want to put your feet to the fire and say, I'm sure that you will join us on Sunday for that Twitter space on the judiciary.
It depends. We have a Freedom Charter. You're giving me a chance to do a free advert. The EFF is going to Cliptown for Freedom Charter Day on that day. If I come back on time, which I'm sure I will, then I will participate in your space. But you are invited to come to Cliptown, all of you. Thank you.
You returned the curveball with even a better
another one. Yeah.
But
Good night, everyone.
In the same way that we allowed Kim to come in later because she had other commitments, we will do the same for you. You know, those Twitter spaces on Sunday tend to drag on, so I'm sure we can bring you in then a little bit later in the course of the discussion.
No, I'm sure I'll be back. I was just sneaking in the EFF advert here. Because
Thank
other
you.
people spoke about their parties here.
That's fine. Anyone can talk about their parties here as long as we are not partisan about our political.
Thank you. All right.
I want to conclude, and I want to conclude by saying to Advocate Busisiwe Ngobeni that we are with you. We are deeply distraught by the manner in which you've been treated, also by this misogynist president, and we are deeply distraught by the manner in which the African National Congress has treated you and your family. And as concerned citizens, not just from the ANC, but from all various political parties and society in general, we want to commit that we will stand up and fight for your rights. You are the people's advocate. We want you back in that office. We do not accept what Cyril Ramaphosa did when he so deliberately suspended you to save his own bacon. This nonsense must come to an end. We call on every member of parliament who are people who still have some integrity, and we hope there are still some of them in parliament, to refuse to vote in that farcical process and vote against you. Anyone who participates and who votes against you and who acts against you in that parliamentary process that is now unfolding does not deserve to be a public representative. And we as the people should remove them. With those words, I want to conclude this space. I thank our guests, Paul Ngobeni and Kim Heller, for their participation and for their invaluable input. I thank, as always, my co-host, Tsepo Khadima. Unfortunately, at the end, we couldn't benefit from his summary of the events. And especially, I want to thank all of you who, again, spent so much time on this space, participated, and I again express my apology to those of you who still wanted to speak and did not get the opportunity tonight. We will try to create better opportunities, more time within the limits of what is available. Thank you so much for all your participation. Good night, and let's keep on fighting. Let's keep on insisting that Cyril Ramaphosa must go, that the public protector must return to a rightful position. Good night.